Right, there we are. Sorry, technical issues as always. This is what happens, you put a monkey in charge. Anyway, sorry about that, everyone. I haven't done this webinar. I did do the last one, it was Lee, so I've completely forgotten how everything works. But here we are again. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this very lovely sunny day in the UK in March. I'm very, very, very pleased to welcome Amanda Barnes, MW.
Thank you.
Sorry, Amanda, to host today's session, and also, of course, to welcome our two winemakers. We have Elias Lopez Montero from Bodega Verum and Pancho Lavaque from Bodega Lavaque, and from two very different parts of Argentina, so Patagonia and Salta, or Calchaquí Valley, represented today. 6 pretty delicious wines for you to taste. I think we're going to really enjoy this one. Fantastic contrast between the styles of wines. If you've joined one of our webinars before, you'll know the format, the way it works. Fortunately, I won't be talking much longer. I'm going to go backstage in a minute, and it will be Amanda taking over. But we have Q&A, so if you've got any questions you want to ask during the session, please do. The whole session is going to roughly take an hour, no more than that. Plenty of time to get your questions in. And as you taste, if there's anything you want to discuss, just do the Q&A, and we'll try and answer in a timely fashion. But without further ado, Amanda, I will hand over to you. And I don't know, did you want to just get the two guys to introduce themselves properly first? Well, I kind of did that, didn't I? But we'll start, of course, with Elias's wines. Anyway, I'm going to shut up there, and I will get backstage, and we will kick off because I'm just starting to babble. So,
all right. Well,
brilliant.
Pancho, we'll see you in about 20 minutes, I guess. And Elias, we will get started from the south. So we're going to go from south to north today. And I know that everyone has the wines, hopefully, with them. I would really recommend keeping at least the Malbec from our Verum tasting, some in the glass, so that you can do a nice terroir comparison with the Malbec from the Calchaquí Valleys from Lavaque later, because this is a really nice opportunity to see these two very different terroirs of Argentina. So Elias, welcome to La Diferencia. Nice to be in touch. And see you. I know you're currently in the Uco Valley, but you're heading back down to Rio Negro tomorrow morning. I really wanted to kind of start with your story, because tell us about how you made your way to Argentina. It's quite unique for a Spanish winemaker to actually come and move to Argentina, let alone Rio Negro. So perhaps you can kind of introduce yourself and how you got here.
Hi, Amanda, and all your audience. Yeah, of course, yes. Actually, I am the first winemaker from Spain in Patagonia, so it's it's quite strange. Well, it was just a casualty. I was part of my education, obviously, come from Spain, as I was graduated there, but then I started to travel to get some experience around the New World, especially in South Africa. And then I started to make wines in Spain, and I was always have I always wish to come back to the Southern Hemisphere. And I get in love with this idea of making wines in both hemispheres. Because the different times of harvesting make it possible if you have the chance. And then one day the chance finally arrives, and I found a winery in the Alto Valle del Rio Negro, which were using the same brand Verum that we were using in Spain, because we are Bodegas Verum in Spain. So that causality make us get in touch. And I came to Rio Negro in the first vintage in 2016 for making a cooperation between both wineries. And from there, I'm just getting in love with the valley and all the things. Start from that.
Nice. So it was a very friendly, hey, you've got my name.
Yeah.
there was no copyright argument with that one then. It was just, let's work together.
Yeah, it was not that funny at the beginning, but then we realized
okay.
that is better.
That's the true story. Excellent, because that happens quite a lot actually in Argentina. A lot of the names that people pick, like the region of La Rioja is named after Spain.
Yeah.
Some of our great varieties, we're going to be tasting Torrontes with Pancho later, was named after a Spanish variety, but has nothing to do with the Spanish variety. So this kind of name, happenstance happens quite regularly in Argentina. So it's nice to know that you've made it work in a in a very interesting collaboration.
Yeah.
Tell us about, we've got three of your lovely wines here from Rio Negro. And you know, Rio Negro is for me, it's quite a fascinating region because it has quite a long history for Argentina. So really kind of kicked off in the 1800s and had this big heyday in the 1900s where we had, I think, I wrote this down, so I remembered 18,000 hectares. And we've kind of dropped down to, you know, just 1,500 today. It's for me one of the kind of perhaps saddest stories in our history of Argentine wine, that this region really diminished so much when I think there's so much potential there for good quality wines. Tell us a bit about what attracted you to Rio Negro as a wine region, because it is quite distinctive compared to the other terroirs of Argentina.
Yeah, I think, well, as I come from a very dry area in Castilla-La Mancha, you know, in the central plateau in Spain, I immediately get in love with the river, the Rio Negro. It's just an oasis of water. It's amazing the water that drops to the Atlantic Ocean from that river. No, so I see that's really amazing. But apart from that, no, the condition that they have all the latitude, and the low elevation of the vineyards, it make good. It's make it very good for ripe the grape with a very little, very low and very slowly, and especially the soils. It's full of alluvial soils coming all from the Andes mountains, and it's really the combination of these three things, you know, soils, the latitude, and water availability. It's make me crazy, and then I found that it was sad why there's no more interesting wines there, and so many more action, you know, because most of the wines are made in Mendoza or some other regions, no, and I feel sad because of that. So I immediately want to be part of the action of
Renaissance
winemaking in Patagonia. No, it's to recuperate these vineyards and the past, the brilliant past. You know.
And it is definitely, I think there is a renaissance happening in Rio Negro, even though we aren't gaining in plantings. There's definitely, you know, this growing reputation for the quality of the wines there. So let's try our first wine. So we're going to start with your Chardonnay. And I'd like to encourage everyone, as usual, please get involved in the questions and answers box. Send me your comments about the wines that we're tasting and any questions that you have for Elias as well. So could you introduce your Chardonnay that we're tasting today? And I'll have a sip.
It's well, Chardonnay, I think it's nice. I mean, Patagonia in general, especially the Rio Negro Valley, because sometimes we speak about Patagonia as one, but there is several regions inside Patagonia, no? So we are in the Alto Valle and the Alto Valle del Rio Negro, so high part of the Black River Valley, let's say. And I think it's a very good condition for ripening the early grape varietals such as Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. And because of the low elevation, so the sun is not so aggressive, so you can keep very well the acids, and you can really retain very easily the freshness. It's really it's really good for that. And so Chardonnay is the first grape we pick, and that's since I'm working for Bodegas Verum in Patagonia, because in the beginning they were normally starting for Pinot Noir, but I wanted to get this crunchy and fresh and very direct Chardonnay, so I changed a little bit this. I switch this harvesting, so we start with Chardonnay. And I think you can feel a little bit of this crispiness of this variety, and that brings to the wine a really nice longevity as well. So you can, if you try our wines from past vintages like the 2020 or 2029, the wine is still alive, and that's really speaks by itself about the quality of the grapes there. Mm.
Absolutely. It's very nice to kind of, I really enjoy the quite savory style of this Chardonnay. You know, it's got that kind of nice, more slightly mineral and slightly kind of earthier aspect to it as well, along with that lovely kind of crisp, vibrant acidity in the palate. You know, it really does kind of reflect that slightly more kind of nuanced and subtle climate that we have in the south.
Yeah, we do. We try to retain these characteristics of the terroir and in the Patagonia, and so we try to drive the winemaking as much as with a minimum intervention as much as we can, right? And in a good year, you really have a really good pH, brilliant acidity, and you only need to drive the grapes to help a little bit to go to the glass, because it's very, so we don't do much. It's less natural sediment, so we do a direct pressing, and then we send the grapes to the grape juice to the concrete tanks without much settling. So with this, the fermentation, so that helps the fermentation start very easy. And then, depending on the vintage, we add a little touch of wine that is been aged in oak, kind of between 5 and 10%, depending on the year. So just to bring a little bit of more complexity, let's say, yeah.
Excellent. Well, it's delicious. It's showing really, really nicely. And I absolutely love the label. Can you tell us a little bit about these birds?
Yeah, the label. Well, it's a story of the owners of the winery before we take. So my family took over the whole project in 2023. So then before that, Bodega del Rio Lorza was the previous name, and they are 5 members of the family, and they are represented in the label as these 5 swans that you can see in the label. So it's a very typical swan from the Rio Negro Valley, because it's with the black. It has the black hair, the black head, and the white body.
Excellent, beautiful, fabulous. And who's
and
the one?
Of the wind.
There's one chasing on the back.
Yeah. It's the last one. It's the last daughter of the family. Come a little bit late. Yeah,
I love that. The accident, the surprise.
Yeah. It's yeah.
So our next wine is your Pinot Noir, which I think is probably the region is best known for its Pinot Noir. And you talk about, you mentioned, you know, Patagonia as a big region, and we do have very distinctive terroirs. We have obviously, you know, the Rio Negro region. We have Neuquén, which is next door, but also very well known for its Pinot, although a much bigger, bolder style. It's much warmer in Neuquén. And then we have Chubut, which is the other extreme of Patagonia, which is also very well known for its extremely cool climate Pinot Noir. So I think Pinot Noir has become the champion of Patagonia, even with its quite different expressions in the different regions. Tell us about Rio Negro Pinot Noir and the kind of the characteristics we really find in your region.
Yeah, I think because we have very gravel soils and alluvial soils, they're very suitable for Pinot Noir, and so I think it's been also we've been adapting the typical winemaking methods of let's say from Burgundy. So we all use a little bit of whole bones in our vinifications, and more or less we are doing international Pinot Noir style. But I think in the Patagonia, because of the latitude and especially in the Rio Negro Valley, the latitude, we have a kind of connection with the European wines on Pinot Noir, and I think our wines sometimes are more connected with the soil, rather than make it I think the good wines, the wood Pinot Noir in the world, speaks more about the terroir than about the grape variety. And I think in the
Absolutely.
Alto, in the Rio Negro Valley, I think we are on that connection with the soil. So that's something I see in the Rio in the valley. But I'm sometimes in other regions lacks of this connection, and it's more a grape and a style. So I think it's a bit controversial now to say that, but but it's my feeling, no, with the area. So I think in that way the Rio Negro Valley has these beautiful soils that really showing up in the wines. Yeah.
Absolutely. And if anyone is tasting along with us, please do kind of send your comments and questions. I know that some people will be tuning in post live, but it's always nice to know how everyone's feeling and tasting the wine at home. For me, it's absolutely beautiful. I love this vintage. There's so much kind of brightness and freshness to it, while also having that very kind of Pinot truffle and and slightly kind of shiitake character as well as that lovely kind of greater savory depth as well. But very pretty kind of for me, these lovely kind of cherry notes that are just kind of leaping from the glass. It's a really pretty expression of Pinot Noir. Do you want to tell us a bit about the winemaking for this? So you mentioned that you're using a bit more whole bunch. In this vintage, how much do you typically use? Is it something you change depending on the vintage conditions?
Yeah, it's depending on the vintage condition. Sometimes I use between 40% and 20%, let's say. And what I try to make a very short, it's try a light contact normally. So I try to mostly improve the extraction in the beginning, and then it's very slowly pump upwards, maybe just push downs of the skins and things like that, because really to try to preserve this sensibility of the wine, so it's you can feel in your glass now the wine is really not really silky, so that's something that's coming from the low extraction. And yeah, because you have also the stems, you need to do it very careful, otherwise you get a little too green, and so we want to avoid that. And so we only bring like kind of 10 days of contact. So we try to start the fermentation naturally, and after 10 days the wines is around 8% alcohol. Then we pressed and then finish the fermentation in concrete tanks. We start and finish in concrete tanks, and after that we move the wine to old 500-liter barrels. So that's where we make the malolactic fermentation. And then some part of the wine will remain for the aging in barrel, and some other will come back to the concrete. And then after about 10 months, we make a blend between those both portions.
Excellent, fantastic. And tell me a bit about the winery, because you're mentioning concrete, which obviously is both a historic vinification vessel here in Argentina, but also very trendy. A lot of people are moving back to concrete. Tell us, is it a new build winery? Are you using an older space? Tell us a bit about the actual winery and facility in terms of what you have and the choices you've made.
Yeah, the facility is the winery, same the Rio Lorza family built in 2004. They started planted all the vineyard, 20 hectares, Malbec, Chardonnay, and Pinot Noir mostly, but we do have some Merlot and Cabernet Franc as well. And the winery, it's yes, combination of stainless steel, concrete tanks, but it's very small but very well done, and so it's quite modern. But it was they were not in the wine business because the family were lawyers, but they were always having good consultants. So it was in the beginning. It was Alberto Antonini, who started
Yeah,
to.
very famous Tuscan winemaker. Who's
Then it was Hans Winding, which is a pretty popular winemaker in Patagonia and the world. And then I started to consult them from 2020 until 2003. And then I get over all the project. But well, getting back to the first consulting, I mean, it was a very good name in the Argentinian in the world wine industry. So they got good advice to get the right place for winemaking.
excellent, lovely. Well, the Pinot Noir is absolutely delicious. I really, really enjoyed it. Love the style. And now we're going to taste Malbec, which I think is, one of the great wines, obviously from the region as well. It's our kind of champion variety in Argentina, our most planted and the most exciting way to kind of taste the differences in our terroirs here. Even though Chardonnay and Pinot are definitely very terroir transparent grapes, and we know that internationally. I think Malbec is really the one that kind of does it here for Argentina. So, this must have been your first experience with Malbec, I assume, coming from Spain and your experience in South Africa. How do you, as an international winemaker, how do you see the, Malbec really kind of showing itself on the international stage?
Yeah, I was very excited about the possibility of making Malbec. So when I came to the Patagonia, I wasn't thinking in Pinot Noir or Chardonnay. I was thinking in making a Malbec for my family because I love that connection between grape and country and market. No, that's so. To me, it was so simple message, but at the end so strong, and I want to be part of that. And obviously, I love them. Some of them Malbec already as a consumer, right? As a wine lover. But being part of that, it was so exciting. And then when I and then I tried the Malbec from Patagonia. I see it's very different from the Malbec from Mendoza or from the Malbec of Salta that of course Pancho will talk about later. And well, I get so it's something like the Tempranillo in Spain, no? So you know the Tempranillo in Toro in Rioja or in La Mancha, no? So it's that's something that was very exciting for me, and it talks about the diversity of the country, and I know I got immediately in love with that. Yeah,
absolutely. So before we taste this Malbec, Gossi has just sent a comment to say that the Pinot Noir is really outstanding. You can feel the minerality and this kind of lovely full body style of Pinot coming through. But also, I agree, I think very kind of elegant too. And this Malbec for me is also a very elegant expression of Malbec. And that's often what I find with Rio Negro and I think what it's become famous for. Quite different to neighboring Neuquén, which is all about power and richness. I always find that the Malbec from Rio Negro are always quite kind of layered, quite savory, quite nuanced, similar in expression that we've been talking about, the Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. But I love the kind of delicacy, the fragility to this kind of Malbec as well. Tell me a bit about your winemaking for the Malbec and what you like about this terroir for Malbec.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think because of the elevation, so the tannin is a little bit softer. So we have this. So the low elevation makes this, different profile of tannins. So and we use this like a kind of advantage or just to drive the wine to something very gentle and with drinkability, as you say, because it's I think it's something between it has some influence of the Pinot Noir winemaking as well. So we use a little bit of whole bunch as well, between 10%, 15%, depending of the harvest, depending of the vintage, or even sometimes a bit less if the if the grape is if the berry is very small, sometimes you don't really want to put more stems, you know, on your
Yeah.
on your yeah on your wine.
What do
But
what in
the
simple terms, what do the stems kind of bring to the winemaking? What's the purpose of adding stems in your vinification
I mean,
or whole bunch?
yeah, the whole bunch, it's it's going to be a semi-carbonic maceration, so it's going to develop a few more complexity, a little sudden, or it's going to drive the aroma to a different direction. It brings, and it doesn't mean it's better. It's just different, and I like this style, and and the stems obviously brings a little bit of tannins and a different grip, which make another layers on the wine. And I'm sometimes, if you use it properly in the right year, normally I like the tension and the complexity to the texture that brings. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think
Sometimes
with the delicacy that you get in Rio Negro, that texture, that extra kind of grit that the stems in your Malbec and Pinot Noir have brought, it really makes it a very kind of exciting wine to drink.
Yeah.
Tracy has a question. What are the biggest opportunities for Patagonia as a region? And do you think they're different to the rest of Argentina?
Yeah, I think greatest opportunity for Patagonia is the name of Patagonia is always on demand because of Patagonia itself is a brand, and because of the global warming, we are still a lucky region because of we have so many water there, as I said at the beginning, and that is also good because in some regions, I talked with some colleagues from Mendoza that they're having some problems with that, and in Patagonia instead, in the Rio Negro Valley, we don't have this problem for now. But even in Neuquén, some of the wineries they have very difficult access to the water. So I think it's out in the Rio Negro Valley. It's a kind of oasis in that sense. So that is some of the advantages that we do have, and also obviously the world is switching to more gentle wines. A little bit. So we are in a good position to get more market because of that as well.
Yeah. I have some people that are raising their hand, and I have to be honest, I don't know how to respond to that. So if you're raising your hand because you have a question or a comment, please put it in the question and answer box, the Q&A box, because I can see that and relay it to Elias. But in terms of the hand waving, I've got no idea what to do with that one, so I apologize. I have a question here from Raj, who says that there's a flavor and style profile that goes through all three of those wines. I definitely agree, Raj. Is this something, Elias, that you've brought with you in terms of winemaking, or do you think the region really dictates the style and the approach? And what is your style as a winemaker? You make wines in Spain as well. Is there something kind of similar in your style as a winemaker, or would you say that it really is the region that kind of shows through in this style?
No, I think it's both things. No, because of I like this style of wines. I'm working similar than Pinot Noir with Garnacha, for example, in Spain. So it's this style of silkiness or drinkability. It's a part of my style, yeah. And I think it's the human intervention on hand is important in the winemaking. And obviously, as I said, because of for example, if we refer to the Pinot Noir, it's speak about terroir, but it's basically, the style is very important. So the thing that you decide to put 40%, for example, of whole bonds, and then you decide to press in 10 days, for example, it's kind of it's a human decision, no? And it's really, really important on the style and the profile of the wine. But apart from that, there is a common sense in the three wines with three different varietals. I think it speaks about the terroir as well, Yeah, because all of these wines have been made in a different way. Yeah.
Super, thank you. Great answer. I'm here, and if anyone has a question, you have about 2 minutes to get it in the box before we move up north to the extreme north of Argentina. So Yetnia has a question here, or Lenier. I apologize if I pronounced it incorrectly. Just saying, it's not a question, it's a comment. Just saying the Malbec is fantastic. The freshness of it, the powerful body of the grape comes in really great balance. And I think that's a really I totally agree with that comment. And I really think balance is something that, we really see a lot in Rio Negro. And I think in all three of these wines, it's a really beautiful show of the region and of that kind of sensitivity, as you said, Elias, that real sensitivity of the terroir, the soil with the climate, the way that they all interact. And you can have these very kind of delicate expressions of these grapes that I think come along really, really nicely.
Mm.
Super. So if we don't have any more questions, we are going to nip up to the north. And Elias, I'll ask you to step backstage. I'll see if Aaron can do the magic shuffle. And hopefully we'll see you at the end in case there's any more questions from the south. So come with us. We're traveling. How many kilometers are we traveling, Pancho, from Rio Negro to the Calchaquí?
2,000 kilometers and 2,000 meters in altitude.
Excellent. All right. So quite a jump, quite a leap. And you've got very different weather up there today than I have here in Mendoza. So we've bypassed the cloudy, slightly rainy climate of Mendoza, and we've gone straight to the beautiful Calchaquí valleys. And what a gorgeous background. Tell us exactly where you are.
Thank you. Here we are in Salta, in northern Argentina, surrounded by the Andes mountains that obviously connect to where you are in Mendoza, same mountain range. So I'm here very glad to be with you.
Yes, I have to say the Calchaquí Valleys are one of my favorite wine regions in South America to go to because you drive into the valleys and it's a totally different experience. Here in Mendoza, I'm constantly looking at the mountains. We're at the foothills of the mountains. It's actually quite flat. And then we just kind of start getting slopes as we get closer. But the Calchaquí is a world apart. You're surrounded by mountains. You have mountains in every direction. Tell us a bit about the incredible climate there, the fact that you can plant at such high altitude. What are the kind of terroir secrets of the Calchaquís?
Well, as you said, we are really in the mountains, no? In the foothills, and our viticulture is really really influenced by the mountains in every aspect, because we have the altitude that regulates our temperature. It's not that we cultivate from 1,700 meters up to 2,600 meters, our vineyards. And the temperature gap there is really amazing. We get cooler weathers just moving 100 kilometers. Of course, all the soils change a lot throughout the different situations, the quebradas, as we call, where the rivers flow. And of course, we are blessed with very good water just from the glaciers. So all this is part of the mountains and our viticulture. And another very important aspect is the history that we have. Also the same as you just spoke in Rio Negro. There's a very long history of viticulture here in Salta, in the valleys. And not only the viticulture, but also the culture from the original people here that we have, for example, in our vineyards, some agriculture terraces that have 5,000 years of history.
Wow. Amazing. And they wouldn't, just to make that clear, they wouldn't have been planting vineyards 5,000 years ago. That would have been, I assume, for quinoa, or what kind of agricultural products were they growing or cultivating 5,000 years ago?
Well, the potatoes, the Andean potatoes are very typical. Corn, I guess. But, well, just introducing a little bit to the history of the wines that we will taste are the Inca range. And all this culture also has to do with Incas, no? And the Andes and all this history. Because there's an Inca trail in our valley where around like 600 years ago, the Incas dominated a little bit the local people. And there is some influence of the Incas into our area. So that's why we named like this these wines.
Beautiful. I mean, the Incas had a huge influence over really kind of the predating the wine history, obviously. But in the importance of irrigation and bringing those irrigation channels to all of our wine regions, and also the native tribes before the Incas, like the Huarpes here in Mendoza as well. So it is all very much linked in our wine history, and the development, the potential of making wine here before the Spanish arrived. So interestingly, there is a long history in the Calchaquí valleys, but I think, compared to where we started in the south, and the history's kind of been, unfortunately, the plantings have been diminishing. It's actually the opposite in the Calchaquí valleys. We've gone from, being a very kind of isolated region where even though there was a long history, there were never too many plantings in number. And actually, it's one of the few wine regions of Argentina that is steadily growing. So today, I think we have over 4,500 hectares in the latest records. And it really has become a very sought after place for high quality wines and premium wines. And one of the most sought after grapes is obviously Torrontes, which is where we're starting. So one of our native Argentinian grapes, born in Argentina and not really found anywhere else. Can you tell us a bit about Torrontes and why it has such a special expression at this altitude and in the Calchaquís?
Well, that's really interesting. As you almost Vitis vinifera in America, and they were all brought to America by the conquistadores in their early ages. And the first grape they brought was Listán Prieto, known as Criolla Chica. That actually we do have some of those vineyards in the valley. And Torrontes, it was thought at one time that it was the same as Torrontel in Spain, but that's not the case. And it's, as you said, Amanda, it's a native grape, that it's a cross-breeding between the Moscatel de Alejandría and the Criolla Chica, Listán Prieto. So that is how Torrontes got to appear. And it has a long history in Cafayate. Our vineyard, it's 130 years old. So
wow, amazing.
You can imagine how this grape adapted to the place. And these vineyards are really healthy. They're not grafted. They are Torrontes rootstock with the Torrontes expression in the canopy and everything. And they're all planted in parrales, no, in pergolas. How would you say that?
But in English we often use the Italian pergola. Yeah.
Pergolas. And it's interesting because nowadays in modern viticulture, people look for higher density in the plantations. And in the old times, 130 years ago, they planted Torrontes 4 meters by 4 meters of distance. And you have
Wow.
these massive plants really adapted to the place that it obviously took longer to grow up a vineyard with this distance. But it makes sense because one of the factors that we have in the valley is a lot of sun.
Mm.
We only have 200 millimeters of rain a year, concentrated in 1 or 2 months. So having so much sun, the pergola, it's like a roof for the fruit to protect them from this the sun exposure. And everything in Cafayate, due to the high altitude, that gives us a big temperature gap between day and night, and the sun. Vegetables and everything we grow is very expressive, and Torrontes is not the exception. Torrontes, it's a very aromatic wine, and it's one of those wines that when you taste the fruit, the berry has the same flavor as the wine. When you taste Torrontes, you can tell it is Torrontes. Many times, if you are not a specialist tasting any other grape variety, it's not so easy to pick
To do, yeah.
what it is, no? But it has
Abs-
beautiful floral aroma.
yeah.
Uh,
It's so expressive. It's so bright, and it's an interesting point you make about the Torrontes tasting like Torrontes, which often doesn't happen with other grape varieties. And that's why it's also been such a popular grape for eating over the years as well. And I think, you know, you find these beautiful old Torrontes vines in a lot of houses as well, because they always had it for their grape that they could, you know, make wine from and then also enjoy eating. It's really quite a delicious grape to eat as well. But I love this expression, Pancho. It's a very kind of fragrant Torrontes, you know, that lovely kind of lychee and jasmine and orange blossom coming through the nose, but it's got that lovely kind of crisp, vibrant mouthfeel as well, and lovely refreshing acidity. How is it that I know that the altitude obviously has a part to play in retaining the freshness, but tell us a bit about your winemaking and how you achieve this very kind of vibrant style of Torrontes.
Well, first of all, I want to talk a little bit about our viticulture. We are certified organic vineyard, and we do regenerative work with the soils. These old vineyards, for a long time, they were managed with conventional viticulture, with the use of every kind of agrochemicals. So after, I don't know, 40 years of conventional viticulture, the soils suffered a lot. So we do a lot of work to bring back life into the soils of microorganisms that, here, my little daughter.
Hola. She can
Okay.
join us. It's nice.
Little Esmeralda. So we work a lot to bring life back to the soils, and these microorganisms also help to make available all the nutrients that the vineyard needs. So that gives us a good starting point with a fruit that is fully organic. So that will make everything easier than in the winery, because we use native yeasts to start fermentations spontaneously, and we don't do any kind of additions to the wines. So that is basically just taking the nature into the bottle and expressing our landscapes and our space. So basically, we receive the fruit in the winery, and we directly press the Torrontes. As I told, this spontaneous fermentation, and then we keep the wines in concrete tanks. Our winery there's an older part of the building. Our winery is 150 years old. So we still use the old school pools, I would say.
Amazing. Yeah. Yeah,
And
the concrete tanks with
exactly. And then the more modern area of the winery is concrete tanks. So
fantastic.
um, that's a little bit of how we do this Torrontes.
You make it sound simple, but I'm sure it's a lot of hard work too.
Well, very
And what I love,
important white wines is to ferment at cold temperatures, you know, that we do.
excellent. And one thing that I love, here in Mendoza, we have our empanadas with Malbec and red wines. But whenever I'm in Salta and in the north, I think the empanadas are best with Torrontes. Like for me, that's the ultimate pairing with a Torrontes is a slightly spicy salteña meat empanada. What's your favorite pairing for Torrontes? Because it's quite a distinctive wine.
Well, the empanadas, it's a perfect match, and that breaks a little bit the idea that meat needs to be combined with red wine, because Torrontés just goes perfect, and especially here up in the mountains. But it's a very nice wine, as it's aromatic for spicy food, for sure, because it freshens, and sometimes spicy food, if it's a more less aromatic wine, it can compete too much. I like it a lot with every kind of seafood. With sushi, it goes perfect. And one other thing that I'm just reminding is when you said about the freshness and the acidity and the citric notes of Torrontés, and then the floral and more fruit character. It's a little bit because we pick in two different times for this wine, the grapes. We pick an early stage that will give the more citric and better acidity character, and then the floral and more fruit character is of a more ripe stage of the
It's a really nice balance that you've achieved. And anyone that's tasting along, I encourage you to send in your questions or comments about the wine as well. And that was really a lovely way to start. And now we're going to move into your two red wines. So here we have the Malbec that we're going to be tasting. And, you know, we've just come from the south with the Malbec expression from Rio Negro. And now we're going to move to a Calchaquí expression, which is a completely different ballpark. And actually, I always love to show Calchaquí Malbecs in tastings because I think they show such a big difference in style and a counterpoint to the other regions. Can you explain to us, you know, what you think the Malbec from the region tastes like and why we get that expression?
It's very interesting how Malbec has a connection through all Argentina, no? If there's one grape that has the elasticity to be grown at different latitudes and altitudes, it's Malbec. And it shows a different face in the different areas. Here, the high altitude and the sunny Calchaquí valleys, we get a nice color expression in the Malbec, and always in the style that we do our Malbec, you get some spices. You say especias. How would
Yeah,
you say that?
definitely spices. Yeah, there's some lovely
Like,
exotic spices and like peppery spices too.
exactly, that's typical of Malbec here in the northern area, and especially in the way we do it, because as we don't like doing any additions to the wine, we don't correct the acidity. And here it's very easy to, if you wait for a riper Malbec, the pH or the acidity drops quite fast due to the weather. So we do an early picking, looking for the freshness, a fluid wine, a juicy wine, and that gives also this spicy character that makes it quite unique.
God, it's delicious. I love the, it's very lively in the palate, actually, this combination of the acidity and the lovely kind of peppery spice that comes through. It really makes me want to kind of eat. That's the truth about this wine. It's very inviting to eat. I'd love to have Mexican with this, because those slightly kind of like peppery notes that come through would really kind of make me want some food with some nice kind of stronger cumin and different flavors going through the food. Here we've got Florencia says it's such an aromatic Malbec, very expressive with a lot going on, spices and fruit. Which I absolutely agree. It's really vibrant. It's really yummy, Pancho.
Well, and aging process in concrete keeps all this identity not to be masked in any way, and it gives also some minerality. Concrete also gives another layer and a nice micro oxygenation into the aging of these wines.
Fabulous. And then our second red is Tannat, which really isn't, our Condor family will all know that, we have a lot of Tannat in Uruguay. It's really not relatively common in Argentina, even though, by quantity, we have a fair amount of plantings, but it's not one of our most planted grapes. It really is in the north of Argentina where we see Tannat grown and thrive. Why is it that Tannat works so well in these very high altitudes and the Calchaquí climate?
Well, it's a part of this history, that we are speaking about the valley. We started with native Torrontes, the Malbec with all the identity that Argentina has. And Tannat is in our oldest vineyards, we have Tannat, that it's originally from Madiran, France.
Yes, yeah.
And European immigrants that came into the valley in the late 1800s, they brought the tintas francesas, they called, and they planted in the same block Cabernet Sauvignon, Malbec, and Tannat. And obviously, these guys were great viticulturists, and they understood the places. Tannat is it's a long range, you would say, to ripe. This variety has a long cycle. So the same as Torrontes. So that makes it adapt very well to Cafayate. I don't know. You were some minutes ago tasting Pinot Noir and Chardonnay from Patagonia, very short cycle varieties. Here, as we have so much sun, if we would put Chardonnay, we would have to pick it, I don't know, in December.
Yeah, in the previous vintage.
Exactly. And Tannat is really beautiful because you can hold it in the vineyard, you can wait until it ripes. It gives this dark fruit character.
Yeah.
This beautiful color, the purple deep color that is very typical of the grape. And for example, we already picked this year, we're in the middle of the harvest. We already picked Malbec. We already picked Merlot, most of the Torrontes, and Tannat, we will pick it next week. Is the last grape to ripe. Of course, in our style of wine, we pick quite early comparing to the average people in the valley, due to wanting to keep this natural acidity. So we get nice ripeness, nice dark fruit with a very balanced natural acidity.
Yeah, you've got this lovely, like, real richness of bramble fruit in the nose, which is really very inviting. But there's also like a slightly floral element to it as well, which, I guess is very much your approach of picking a bit earlier and keeping it very vibrant. And I love it in the palate. Again, it's a very vibrant wine, much like the Malbec. It's got a lot of energy. And I think sometimes in the north, there's this tendency, you can get great ripeness in the Calchaquís, and you can have wines that are like 15.5% of alcohol. And you've really kind of kept that balance really nicely in check with lovely freshness. It makes it very drinkable. and rather kind of on the lighter style, I think, for the Calchaquí, but still with all that nice kind of like smokiness of the fruit character, which is so typical in the north, and that real kind of richness of the fruit and the spiciness. So a lot of flavor, but a really nice balance too, I think.
And nice and firm tannins in the mouthfeel, no? In the middle of the palate, it has invites you to have a good beef, no?
Absolutely. Or maybe even a nice lamb with this one. I'd quite like, or a llama. We could have a llama. Llama's actually quite delicious. I probably shouldn't say that for any llama lovers in there. But we're running out of time, so I would invite, if anyone does have any questions, now is absolutely the chance, because we're going to have to let our winemakers get back to harvest. And I appreciate that they're taking time during the busy harvest to do this tasting with us. As we wrap up, I'd also like to invite Aaron and Elias back into the room. But Pancho, can you tell us a bit about, what is the vintage looking like in the Calchaquís this year? Like how is you're almost finished with your harvest. We've still got some time to go here in Mendoza. How has it been? What does 25 look for you at Lavaque?
It's very nice overall, very healthy fruit. We had early rains in the season, earlier than usual. Usually, the first rains happen in December, and this year we had some in September and October. So that made the vines bloom with a lot of energy and early. And that also made it ripe a bit earlier than usual. We are like, I would say, 10 days earlier than any other year. During January, the rains continued a little bit, which gave us a lot of cloudy days for a nice and smooth maturation in the grapes. So I'm very happy with the quality, and we didn't have any problems with frost, hail. That in previous year, last year it was quite challenging.
Yeah. Well, we really look forward to tasting 2025 at some stage soon, and it's been a real delight to try your wines. I think they really show that great expression of the Calchaquís, but also reflect your very vibrant and fresh, kind of delicious to drink style. So a really nice selection of wines for today. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks, Pancho. Yes, really, really interesting listening to you. Apologies for Elias. He had to rush for a plane, I'm afraid. So he's actually, he's left the building, so to speak. But he sends his apologies that he couldn't be in the end. But he has already asked for the recording because he'd like to hear your part, Pancho, because it's quite interesting to hear your insights on Salta. I certainly was. And I'd agree with Amanda. Those wines are so drinkable. I mean, there's an English expression, which, as a responsible distributor, I shouldn't really say it, but smashable is what you could call it. Sorry, no, we don't use these kind of words in the trade, certainly not. Anyway, no, thank you, Pancho, and thanks, Amanda.
Smashable in moderation, Aaron. Come on.
Smashable in moderation, exactly. Yeah. We're responsible. Thanks, Pancho. Really, really interesting, and thank you. This is the first time you've done the webinar for us, of course. So thank you very much for joining us. Amanda, you've done many of these now, and it's always really interesting to hear the little nuggets you tease out of people with asking them the questions. And no, again, today, really interesting insights. So thanks for that. One couple of things just to finish off with quickly before we go. Finally, if you were interested in all of the really fascinating facts you heard in the webinar today, well, you could do a lot worse than get a copy of this. It's great bedtime reading, South America Wine Guide written by Amanda. It's going to need reprinting though, Amanda. It doesn't say MW on here.
I'm not putting it. Thank you.
But yeah, that book's fantastic if you're interested in South American wine. I mean, it's just what a tome and what a magnum opus you put together there. And one other bit of business just to mention to everybody who's listening, if you've enjoyed the webinar, our next one is going to be on the 1st of May. And it's going to be, well, the working title is Marvelous Malbec. Can't imagine what the feature is going to be for that one. So yeah, join us on the 1st of May. We'll be sending out a note about that soon. So just register if you'd like to join us. But remains to say, thank you so much to both of you and to Elias in absentia for participating in today's webinar. Really great start to 2025. Thanks both.
Thank you. Thank you. Always a pleasure. Good luck with the rest
Thanks
of the
audience.
harvest, Pancho.
Yeah, good luck with that, Pancho. Bye for now.